this computer. And Bill, I'm going to ask you to mute if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
Clean record.
Stuff like that. No, don't have to be good. It's all me trying to get right. You know what I mean?
All right. So, welcome everyone to our July virtual panel for NYABJ. My name's Benita Sostre. I'm the president of the New York Association of Black Journalists, and we're so excited to be welcomed here with an expert in all things AI from Orca Intelligence, Mr. Mike Akma. I know I'm saying it wrong, Mike.
No, you said it well.
I said
No,
it
come on,
right.
that's fine. Yeah.
I always say everyone's name wrong. So, thank you so much for joining us. Today we're going to be talking about all things AI, how to use it, um, the history behind it, how to turn that 500-page document into 5 paragraphs, basically, into something that's way more manageable for all of us. It's going to help us in our work in all types of communication, journalism, media. And then also, we're going to be taking your questions toward the back end of this. I'm going to pass things over to Mike to get this party started. So, Mike, the floor is all yours.
Yeah, thank you, Bonita. Good evening, everyone. Yeah, my name is Mike Akama. I am a data scientist and an application developer. So I develop a lot of applications that are powered by AI. So today and today's topic would be how can we leverage generative AI in journalism, and how can we enhance our or develop our skills to align with demands of AI. So in today's there are 8 different areas that I'm going to cover today. The first one is to talk briefly about what artificial intelligence is and some of the different branches of artificial intelligence or AI. And then we're going to focus on a subset of or a branch of AI, which is generative AI. I know most of you guys have heard of generative AI. That's been the talk of the town for the past 2, 3 years. And I'll talk about generative AI and how it has evolved over time and some of the key milestones and breakthroughs leading to today's tools. The third topic would be the AI model landscape, talking about what proprietary models are and what open source models are, and which ones to choose for our different business needs. The fourth topic area is why should journalists care? Why should journalists care about the rise of generative AI? And there I'll be giving some real world examples of how AI, specifically generative AI, can be applied in journalism. The fifth topic area is AI-driven reporting workflows. How can we effectively utilize generative AI for research, for writing, sourcing, and even post-publication support? And the sixth is the ethical considerations of AI. So being able to be responsible when we use AI. So what I mean by that is not fully just digesting what AI generates, but verifying the outputs of AI before disseminating it or sending it out to other people as the source of truth. So AI can make mistakes, so we have to really be cognizant of that. And the seventh topic area is skill and career development. Some of the, how can journalists make their future, how can they future proof their careers? And then the eighth is the key takeaways and final thoughts, some actionable steps and the road ahead with the rise of AI and journalism. So the most important question, what is artificial intelligence? At its core, AI simply refers to machines performing tasks that typically require human intelligence. And in artificial intelligence, there are different branches of artificial intelligence. And here I've laid out the top 3 that I think are the most relevant to journalists. The first one is machine learning. When we think of machine learning, think about numbers. These are algorithms that learn patterns of numbers. So machine learning, the way I think of it is, think about you making a large purchase at, let's say, a furniture store. In that furniture store, if you spend, let's say, $2,000, oftentimes it may get declined. The reason is because your bank has a machine learning model that has learned your pattern of spending, right? So if your spending or transaction is an outlier, it would classify that as fraud, right? And then it would decline it, and then you would get an SMS message, and you have to say yes, this transaction is legitimate. That sort of AI is called machine learning. So it understands your pattern of data. Now, the second branch is what we call deep learning, right? So this is the subset of AI that understands, that recognizes speech, that recognizes facial features, and can pinpoint who that person is, and things like that. And for deep learning, that's really relevant and very probably one of, I would say, it's as relevant as Gen AI, as it relates to journalism, because it helps with transcribing interviews into text. It helps in and there are different apps that have deep learning embedded to be able to transcribe speech into text. Now, once you have that speech transcribed into text, then you can utilize generative AI. Generative AI, think of it as um, a branch of AI that is very good at understanding document, very good at understanding text. It's also capable of creating content and creating new novel text as well. And this is the subset or the branch of AI that we're going to be focusing most on in this presentation. So when did Gen AI start? When did it become widely or start becoming widely used? And where is it today? So Gen AI really started to become widely noticed in the academic community first in about 2018 with the release of GPT-1 by OpenAI. And GPT-1 was a very small model, as you can see. It had only 170 million parameters, very small model. And what that meant was that the output wasn't as good in quality, right? And then in 2020, OpenAI introduced GPT-3, and it had 175 billion parameters. Now, the parameters correspond to the size of the data that the model was trained on. The bigger the parameter, the more accurate the outputs of that AI model is. So in 2020, OpenAI introduced GPT-3. The outputs were very good, but not as good as GPT 3.5, which was introduced in 2022. And also with GPT 3.5 came about ChatGPT, which is the service. So that's really when this whole concept of large language models and generative AI was popularized. It was in 2022 with the introduction of ChatGPT. Even though models existed prior to 2020, ChatGPT putting that UI, that very intuitive UI, and then deploying that so that users can sort of interact in a very conversational manner, sort of made this large language model take off in 2022. Now in 2023 and 2025, a lot of the new things that occurred past 2022 was just improving the existing model. So GPT 3.5 was improved, and now we have GPT 4.0, GPT 3.03, and things like that. And other companies arose that are now competitors to OpenAI, such as Anthropic, Meta as well from Facebook, ex-Facebook, and others have been significant competitors to OpenAI. So the takeaway from this is 2022 was the watershed moment when it comes to generative AI. Because of the introduction of ChatGPT, which made it easy for people like me and you to be able to understand the power of the models that are powering ChatGPT. So the AI model landscape. So there are two different types of models that exist. One is what we call proprietary or closed source models, and then the other is what we call the open source models. Now, proprietary models are models like GPT-4o, GPT-4, and for Cloud 3.5. These are closed, which means you don't have access to the weights of these models. That means you can't just download these models on your local machine. You would have to access them through a cloud provider. Now, open source models, you can download the weights publicly, and they're small enough, some of them are small enough for you to download and use locally on your laptop. These include the Llama 3, which has about 8 billion parameters, and it also has a 70 billion parameter, and Mistral and other open source models. So the takeaway from this slide is proprietary, closed source. They're very large. They can be downloaded on your local laptop. And then open source models, they're air gapped, and you can download the weights from websites like huggingface.com. And some of them are small enough to be used on your local laptop, but also even on your iPhones or your um, cell phone devices. So to talk about just when to use proprietary models versus open source models, it really depends on what your use case is. Some proprietary models, they're very easy to use. Companies like OpenAI and Anthropic have made them very easy to use because they have uh, given us or has they have made it easy to be able to access those models through an API, right? Open source models, they take a little bit more of they take a little bit more expertise, right? So you would have to manually go and download these models on Hugging Face or other websites, and then be able to host them on a server like an EC2 instance on AWS or other cloud providers, and then be able to call those or to be able to send requests to those models. So it depends, right? And now there's also a hybrid approach. Some proprietary models can be good at one thing. For example, GPT-4o can be good at summarizing texts, while an open source model can be good at generating code. So it all depends on your use case, right? If you want good code and there's an open source model that can generate high quality code, then you would go with that. If you want to generate text or summarize text, then maybe you would want to go with one of those proprietary models. If you want both, then you would go with a hybrid approach. So you would use proprietary models for part of your use case, and then you would use the open source models for another part of your use case. So uh, with that background knowledge, why should journalists care about the rise of generative AI? Uh, Journalists should care about the rise of AI and should be able to learn how to use Gen AI because it automates a lot of those repetitive tasks, those tasks that require heavy lifting. For example, reading a bill that might have just been recently passed, and that bill could be maybe 1,000 or 2,000 pages. If you want to be able to transcribe an interview that you're having with somebody, let's say that's Spanish is a Spanish speaker, and you want to transcribe that or translate that into English in real time, there are apps that integrate Gen AI to be able to do that for you. So having these skills is very important for a journalist. Now, uh, an example that I want to give here is there has been a recent bill that was passed by the Senate, which is called the One Big Beautiful Bill. It's about 800 plus pages, the document that was presented to the Senate. Now, if you're a journalist, it's a heavy lift to be able to read line by line all the 800 plus pages in that document. So this is really where Gen AI can come into play, and that's what I want to demo here today. So here I have the ChatGPT interface, and in the ChatGPT interface, you have the ability to be able to upload a document. In this case, I'll go ahead and upload this bill that I'm referring to, and this is what the bill looks like. And then here, you can ask any questions, and the AI can give you direct answer responses and answers directly from this source document that you've given it. So can anyone just give me a specific questions that they want to ask about this bill? You can unmute, and then I'll go ahead and type in the question.
When was the bill created?
So this is the response the response that we get from the AI. It's saying that the bill was introduced in the Senate of the United States on July 1st, 2025. Now, any other questions that are uh, related to, let's say, healthcare, other things that are in this bill, some questions that may require us to go really deep into the bill to be able to get answers.
What language does it contain that might give insight on how it will impact Mitchell-Lamas in New York City?
What language does this bill contain that? Impact what?
That might give insight as to how it would impact Mitchell-Lamas in New York City.
Sorry, I didn't catch that last part.
Sorry, Mitchell dash Lama, Mitchell dash Lama in New York City.
Does that look right?
Yeah, but it'll fix it. I'm just curious.
What language does this bill contain that gives insight? A question like this. No. So this one, it's not. So this is really where prompting comes into play. So what it just did is it searched the internet. It didn't ground its answers into the it didn't ground its answers from this bill. So let's re-ask that question from the uploaded document. Now it's reading the document. Prior to that, so it's saying that it does not contain any language referring to Mitchell Lama or housing, right, in the bill. So this just shows that, any other question, for example, if you ask questions about Medicaid, if you ask any questions about funding for, let's say, customs and border protection, any other stuff that's embedded in this text, it will give you the answer. But and then you can tell it to cite where it got the answers from. For example, what page that specific section is in the bill, right? So it can make our lives easier for not only summarizing, but also finding exactly what page a specific sort of topic area is within the bill. All right. So another thing is the most important thing I would say is whenever we're summarizing or getting responses from AI, I highlighted it here, citation is key. In generative AI, there is a concept called hallucination. What that means is the AI can sometimes generate text that may not be in the source document that you give it, right? So if it does that, let's say in one of your workflows, if you ask the AI to summarize a text from a document, to summarize a document, or if you ask a question, it can generate a response, and then the user can digest that response. However, my recommendation here is to always ask, especially when you're prompting the AI, to always ask the AI to provide citation to the ground truth. For example, if it's giving you a response from the internet, you can say, give me the link from which you got the answer from. And then go ahead and check that link to see if indeed the response that the AI generated is also in the link that the AI provided you as a citation. So how can AI be used for sourcing and talent discovery? Uh, so an AI can first help you generate a tailored outreach for a specific event. For example, if you want to quickly draft a professional message for interviews or commentary or collaboration, you can have the AI draft that for you. For example, here I gave an example here where you can write a professional invitation, let's say to a specific person who is, in this example, a retired Army general and is an expert in Middle East affairs to discuss the Israel-Iran conflict that happened recently. So if you want to draft an invitation, the AI can help you draft an invitation in the tone of your choosing, right? And then the second thing that we could use AI for is to be able to track grassroots commentary during breaking news. For example, if you want to be able to scrape the sentiments of a specific group, you can do that by specifying a URL to, let's say, a Facebook group, or you can tell or you can prompt the AI, or you can create your own custom application to be able to scrape X posts or Twitter posts, right? And then that gives you a summary of what the Facebook group sentiment is about a specific topic, or the sentiment of posts or posts on X, right? So here, Gen AI really helps you or kind of eliminates the need to manually go into the Facebook groups and look at what people are posting, or go to X and look at what people are posting. The AI can do that for you. It does, it searches and scrapes it for you. The second, and I think here the most important sort of use of Gen AI that I've also been a part of developing is using Gen AI to be able to find the best talent. Now, in the past, when before the era of Gen AI, a lot of the resume filter layers, when you apply to specific jobs, were keyword based, right? So let's say if the role of a specific job is asking for expertise in data visualization on your resume, if it's, let's say the role is asking for data visualization at scale for a big corporation with, let's say, 500 users. Let's say that's the role, job description. In your resume, in the past, you can pass by just having the specific phrase or keyword data visualization. Because before it was just a keyword or string to string matching. Nowadays, it's semantic matching. So even though you have data visualization, that alone is not enough. You have to meet the semantic requirement of what's on the role on the job description. So if it's asking for data visualization at scale and deployed on a cloud service or a cloud environment, then your resume must match semantically, be similar to what that role is requiring. So a lot of companies are moving away from keyword resume vetting into semantic resume vetting. And I have been a part of developing one for my company as well. And then the third use of generative AI is combining it with third-party APIs, such as Indeed and Glassdoor, et cetera, et cetera. Most people post their resumes on Indeed and Glassdoor, and Gen AI and some of the embedding models can be able to find resumes that are semantically similar to a specific role, and then rank those resumes based on how well they map to a specific role. So the big takeaway here when it comes to talent sourcing is we no longer rely on keyword matching. It's more now companies are relying more on semantic matching. So whenever you write your resume, you can use Gen AI to be able to help you, address a specific job requirement semantically. For example, that data visualization example that I gave, you can write your resume and then you can say to to ChatGPT or any other Gen AI interface and say, does this resume, does my resume qualification here meet the role requirements here? And then ask it to give you a very critical feedback on your resume. And then that way you can improve your resume, and then it has a better chance of passing that AI filter. So how else can we use Gen AI? Here, we can use Gen AI to craft and to craft stories, and also for writing and improving our writings. What I'm saying here is to help us write better, not to have the AI write everything for us, right? So we want to be original as journalists, right? We want to be original, but we can still use AI to assist us in refining for voice and refining for accuracy, but also in exchanging ideas, right? And giving us critical feedback on our writing. So some of the examples I'm giving here at the bottom is using or leveraging generative AI to be able to generate outlines and frame a specific story. Second example is to be able to rewrite content for different audiences, right? If we want to write a story for, let's say, a business audience, is different from writing a story for a different audience that's not in the business community, things like that. Another way we can use generative AI is to be able to create visual content, let's say for social media or for presentations and things like that. Now, a lot of the models are multimodal. What that means is that they not only generate text, but they're also capable of generating images, and some are also capable of generating videos as well. So we could use that to our advantage. Here, we'll go very briefly. So how do we integrate Gen AI in our workflow? Here is being able to, for example, ask an AI agent to be able to list the top 10 or top X amount of trending stories across different media outlets. For example, in this case, if we want to get different perspectives about a specific topic, we can tell it to give us the perspective of a specific news headline from media outlets such as Fox versus MSNBC versus others, compare and contrast those so that we get a comprehensive idea of what different perspective exists for a given news. In the pre-publication phase, we can use generative AI to be able to highlight factual inconsistencies or lack of clarity on our writing. And post-publication, we can use generative AI to be able to generate letter blurbs, tweet threads, LinkedIn summaries, and things like that. And then in the last workflow, during reporting, we can use AI tools to be able to transcribe interviews, right? If we're having an interview, there are different applications that take that voice and then translate it or transcribe it into text, or take an interview from a different language and translate that into English and things like that. So we can use generative AI in different capacities in this workflow integration here. So some of the ethical guardrails. Again, one of the things I want to emphasize is do not rely solely on the AI's output. There have been a lot of cases where people ask an AI a question about something, and then they take that as the ground truth. No. Going back to what I said earlier, there is this concept of hallucination where the AI will just generate or will give you a response that's totally not in the document that you've given it, right? And then if you just take that and run with it, you're going to be wrong. Always make sure, right, if you're using interfaces like ChatGPT, always make sure to ask the AI to give you the citation, to give you either the page number, to give you either the link, or whatever to be able so that you can verify that the AI's output is always correct. And another thing when it comes to ethics and AI is never publish AI generated work as your own, right? AI is an assistant. It should not be you, right? It should not be used to generate content, especially news content. So when it comes to learning AI and being able to um, advance sort of your skill sets in AI, what do you need, right? What sort of skills do you need to be able to know how AI works and know how or upskill or now know how AI works and also become sort of aware of sort of the behind the scene mechanics of AI. The first thing that I put here is, as a user of AI, is to be able to learn prompt engineering, right? So the AI is only as good as what you tell it to do, right? So for example, if we are asking a question, we have to ask it in a way that sort of structures it in the output that you want it to structure it in. So for example, in the Big Beautiful Bill example that I gave you, we can prompt it to give us the top six, uh, uh, let's say top six areas that the bill has that will affect Medicaid, right? That would be a type of prompt engineering. Giving it an example, this is what we call one-shot prompting, right? So giving it an example of how to generate the output. So if we want a numbered list, giving it a numbered list and telling it to generate the output in this numbered list, giving it a bullet point or giving it quotes. So telling it to give us specific quotes from the source document that you've given it. So giving it examples and things like that. So knowing prompt engineering is very necessary here. Now, if you want to become more technical and want to generate your own AI-powered applications, then learning programming languages. Not too many of them. I think Python, for example, in this field, learning how to program using Python, right? Learning, theoretical concepts such as API, application programming interface, what it is, and things like that. Learning these skills can take you from being a user of AI to being a developer of AI-powered applications. The third thing here that I put is understanding what retrieval augmented generation means, or RAG. Now, this is a big thing in the AI community. And this simply just means using your database as a source for the AI's response. So let's say if you have a document of a document repository that has 5,000 documents containing Supreme Court legal decisions in America's history, you can have that be the ground truth, and then you can communicate in a conversational manner with your AI application, and that AI application will only refer to those 5,000 documents that you have in your database to be able to give you the response. So that's really what RAG means. So understanding RAG and understanding sort of how RAG can be used in different use cases. And then the fourth thing that I have here is being able to master data visualization tools, right? Being able to communicate your findings to an audience, whether it be through dashboard softwares like Power BI or Tableau, or websites or infographics. That's another sort of skill to master, because if you can't communicate your findings, leadership or let's say HR, if you're applying to a specific job, wouldn't be able to sort of fully digest your skill sets. And what if you've developed applications before, the value of the applications that you've developed if you can't communicate that via data visualization or some sort of infographic. So there are different career paths that utilize AI in journalism. The first one is being an AI editor, so overseeing how AI can be integrated for reporting and content generation in journalism. The second career path is becoming a prompt engineer, uh, really becoming an expert on how to tell AI what to do and how to do it, right? So being able to design effective prompts for news and research use. The third career path is becoming a data-driven journalist. So merging reporting with data science tools, right? So if you have numerical data, like I said earlier, being able to combine that with data analytics tools like Python, crunching those numbers and coming up with an output and then reporting that output to be able to become a data-driven journalist. And then the fourth is becoming an automation strategist. So being able to implement AI to optimize newsroom workflows. This can be having or developing a custom AI agent that every morning gives you the top 5 news headlines and summarizing the different perspectives related to that specific news from different news outlets, right? Automating that process instead of a human manually going to these websites and summarizing it themselves. And then the fifth one is becoming a media entrepreneur, launching a niche AI-assisted media venture. There's a lot of possibilities in this bucket as well. So all of this is to say that the future of journalism includes hybrid roles where we have editorial and AI skills interact. And then I just want to, conclude this presentation by saying that AI is not going to replace journalists, but journalists who use AI will replace those that don't. And then with that, I'll open it up for any questions.
That was a great presentation. Thank you so much for that, Mike.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I feel like we learned a lot. I know we kind of talked about this briefly. Can you talk about like looking for jobs, how, we can use AI on resumes, cover letters, that sort of thing? I know you kind of touched on some things.
Yeah. So I think I personally encourage the use of AI, especially when you're developing or when you're writing your resume and when you're also, in a job search or job hunting. But the way you use it is what's critical, right? So let's say that you're interested in a specific role, right? And that role has a list of job requirements, and you have your resumes. You have your resume, and let's say that you use that resume for all jobs. Now, tailoring that resume to that specific job that you're interested in and using AI to assist you is very critical, because as humans, we might think that, because maybe biased towards ourselves, but we might think that, whatever qualifications that we have outlined in our resume may fit well with that job requirement, right? Visually, it may look like that, but having the AI give us a critical feedback, right? And telling the AI things like, does my qualifications and my role in this company in, let's say, 2023 fit the role or the requirements of this role that I'm interested in? Give me a critical feedback. And then you can tell the AI to say, give me a line by line critical feedback. What that will do is it will look at each of the requirements for that role, and then it will look at all of your qualifications, including all of the things that you've done for a specific company as a job and your job experience, and then it will give you a feedback to say, whether or not that qualification will be sufficient to address that the requirement for that specific role. Using AI in this capacity, I think, is very important. I think one of the things that I want to just mention here is, and the company that I work for, that we used to manually look at or generate roles, right? A specific, if we have open roles, we write up the job description and then the requirements for that role. And we have, let's say, a list of resumes. So we used to manually say, yeah, this resume best aligns with this role, so let's rank it higher, so on and so forth. That used to be a manual process in the past. We no longer do that manually. We have AI give us the ranking, right? It tells us, out of this 10 resumes that have applied, rank which one is the highest in terms of how well they fit with the requirement of the role. And we do that by looking at education requirements. For example, does this education, the candidate's qualification, meet the role's education requirement, experience, so on and so forth. So having the AI assist you in crafting your resume tailored to specific jobs is, I think, very important.
Oh, yeah, thanks. I didn't hear what you said, but I know we have a couple of questions in the chat, but did you want to go ahead, whoever that was? Okay. Someone says,
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3,
sorry,
4,
I have
5.
another Zoom going on, guys.
Can anybody
So
hear
do
me?
you see an issue with using AI editing in articles? That's one of the questions we have from Candace.
I don't. The only thing that I'm going to say with regards to editing is that when you use, for example, ChatGPT, anything that you upload, anything that you paste and send as a request in ChatGPT, the regular ChatGPT.com interface, can be used by OpenAI. You have no rights over that data, right? Now, if your job is sensitive, for example, all of your writings or the documents that you're using are sensitive and you don't want these big companies to see the data that you're sending, that's really where you can use open source models that I mentioned in my presentation. When you use open source models, the text that you paste or the documents that you send don't then become used for training the next generation of AI models. They stay within your local environment. But in terms of just using AI to edit text that are not sensitive, or that you're okay if OpenAI uses it for training the next generation of its models, I think you should definitely use it, because why not?
Great. The next question here is, as an editor, how do I decipher a story where the reporter relied heavily on AI to generate the story?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. Now, if you look at how AI writes, for me, I can sort of make out if something is AI or not. And one of those ways, and it's changing, right? Because these models change, so they're not, their tone and their style of writing are not always going to be the same, right? So to have a deterministic yes, you can tell versus no, that's not possible. You can't really tell. But sometimes the way AI writes is it will say something, and then it would have a comma, and then it will start the next what is it called? Compounding sentences. It will have a sentence, comma, and then it will have a word that ends with an ing, and then it will continue to supplement that previous sentence. That's something that I've noticed personally. So I can tell if people send something to me and the writing relies heavily on, somebody correct me, somebody that's good at writing and things like that. I think it's called compounding sentences. If it relies heavily on that, I tend to think it's AI generated, but there is no definitive way of saying that this is AI generated or not, really.
We have another one here. This one says, I came a little bit late, but what would be the best way to learn / practice use of AI?
Yeah, so I mean, AI is very AI. When we say AI, I'm talking about generative AI, that branch of AI. So it's very new, right? I think it came for a lot of us. We became familiar with it in 2022/2023. And from my experience, the way I learned how to use and also develop AI-powered applications is through resources like Udemy, right? They have, for let's say some courses are free, some courses you pay $5 to $10, and then you can take a course and you can choose your courses. You can choose a course on how to use AI or how to become effective at prompt engineering, or you can choose courses uh, on how to become a developer of AI-powered applications. So I think Udemy is really where I learned how to do a lot of these things.
Cynthia, I see you have your hand raised. And if you're talking, you're on mute.
Oh, sorry. Hello? Can you
Yeah.
hear me
Yeah,
now?
we can hear you.
Okay, thank you so much for the presentation. I had a situation the other day where I had an intern that needed to write a story about me. And so I guess she put it in Chat GBT and she came up with an article and sent it over to me to find out was it accurate. And it was accurate. I mean, there were some details that should have been in there that weren't, but it was it was pretty accurate. But I want my interns to learn to think independently and not rely too heavily on AI at this point. And they actually said that their teachers don't want them really dealing with AI because they don't want them taking a lot of shortcuts. Now, that's one perspective, but then, of course, on the other hand, it also helps speed up the process. So, what have been the ramifications, in your opinion, about students' use of AI since they are still in school and they're supposed to be learning and there are certain criteria for them to get grades, passable grades in their courses?
Well, I think it's very difficult, especially outside of the classroom, to prevent students from using AI because it's readily available, right? You can just go to ChatGPT.com. As long as they have access to the internet, they have access to AI. And I think that will continue. Now, in terms of how should students be sort of not only encouraged, but sort of forced in a way to not use AI, as maybe to move away from uh, homeworks because you never know if they're using AI to be able to do their homeworks, and then to focus mostly on classroom assignments, right?
Oh,
The reason why I'm suggesting that is because then you can monitor who's using their phones and who's using their laptops to be able to get AI assisted. Now, I know this is a very big deal, and I think it's very important because a lot of us who grew up without the assistance of AI did so because we had to learn really how to code from scratch, how to do, um, specific math, stats, or whatever. We know sort of the behind the scenes mechanics of how these things work and things like that. Now, with the rise of AI, it can do math for you, it can code for you, it can do a lot of things for you. So to be able to remove that reliance on AI for students is to be more classroom assignment focused rather than homework focused. So having them even, giving them, I think in Montgomery County, for example, I think they give them Chromebooks. For students, I think in elementary or middle school or high school, they give them Chromebooks. So if, let's say it's a coding assignment, you can give them the Chromebook to be able to code on that Chromebook, but then you can set a firewall to block access to AI tools, right?
Oh,
You can have them do that in the class. You can have them write essays in the class. But if you rely, if you're still doing it the old-fashioned way where you're giving them homeworks, I think I would say nowadays, and I think it's going to increase down the road, they're just going to use AI to do it for them. And like you said, it's going to have a cost on critical thinking. So relying mostly on classwork, I think, is the solution for that.
thank you.
Mike, thank you so much for your amazing presentation, for answering all these fantastic questions. We really appreciate it. If there aren't any other questions, I want to thank everyone so much for joining us for July's virtual panel for NYABJ.